Welcome back to News Channel 5 Plus. Rhori Johnston with you on a Monday night as we talk about the pandemic, coronavirus, and our kids going back to school. If you have kids in Metro Nashville Public Schools at this point, June 22nd, do you feel comfortable sending them back to school in about 6 or 7 weeks, beginning to mid-August? That is what we're talking about tonight, and how that may look with our guests Amanda Kail and Andy Spears. So we'll go back to you, Amanda. Right now, as of today, Metro Nashville moved into phase 3 of reopening, and according to the plan, the preliminary plan, I want to point out that more details will be released, I believe, the week of July 6th from Metro Nashville Public Schools. So we'll see what happens there. But right now, let's assume we stay in phase 3 and we don't move out of phase 3. This says schools would engage in significant social distancing to reduce, contact. Masks would be worn in common areas. Entrances and exits would be limited. Large-scale assemblies would be discontinued. Hallways would be made one way in certain circumstances. Meals would be eaten in classrooms when possible, or schools would enact social distancing policies in cafeterias. That right now is where we would be if school started today. Is that correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Go ahead.
Again, I think that those are, excellent guidelines, but I think that it would be very difficult to implement them at this time. And I think part of the things I want to say is, we were talking about funding before. MNP has been chronically underfunded for years. We have been underfunded by the state, and we have been underfunded locally. And as a result, we don't have a lot of extra. We have had to cut our budget so many times that we don't have extra people in order to have smaller class sizes. We don't have extra classrooms. We don't have buildings in good repair. We don't have enough bus drivers. So, the fact that we're starting behind the finish line so far because of that underfunding means that when we look at those recommendations, it makes it very hard to have faith in them, because I can tell you that teachers are thinking about their individual schools, and they're thinking, I don't know how we would do that. And, teachers are creative. Our principals are creative. We're dedicated. We want students to be able to come back to school too. We know that the online thing is not ideal, but I don't know, without significant investment, how we make all those things happen realistically.
Andy, she mentioned creativity. Teachers are going to need a lot of that.
Yeah, so I'm definitely married to a teacher who is, you look at the state guidelines, she teaches theater. I don't even know how you're going to have a production in front of an audience. Amanda talks about Metro being underfunded. Metro is underfunded by the state by a minimum of $100 million every year. So you can ask Amanda, and you can ask every other teacher in Metro, 5,000 plus teachers, what they would do with their share of $100 million. And there would be new buildings, and there would be new classrooms, and there would be new programs. The state of Tennessee is not committed to public education, period. And Governor Bill Lee, in the emergency COVID budget, decided to give tax breaks to people who get the whole income tax and tax breaks to people who get the inheritance tax. That was a higher priority than public schools. That's the bottom line. That's the reality.
So, Andy, let's say that we weren't in a crisis budget. and we're looking for that extra $100 million. Where does it come from? Is it just from other areas, or do we raise taxes? Where do we get that money? I mean, we've all known for years.
Have to raise taxes. We have the largest rainy day fund we have ever had, ever in the history of Tennessee. We have $3 billion in various reserve funds, $3.3 billion in various, and we haven't even talked about Medicaid expansion, but $3.3 billion in reserve funds in the state. I'm talking about $100 million to Metro, roughly about the same amount to Memphis, so $200 million, and about $300 million to the rest of the state. $500 million would make a lot of districts really happy.
Sure.
So Memphis and Metro, the biggest districts in the state, and a bunch of other districts, and that's lots of extra money that you can keep in the rainy day fund.
We've got some phone calls, so go ahead. No, go ahead. Finish your thought, Andy. I'm sorry.
No, or we can keep doing what we're doing, which is not funding schools.
Perfect. All right, let's go to Sherry on line 1. Hi, Sherry. Welcome in.
Hey, Rhori. How are you doing?
Doing fine. What's on your mind? Oh, say again. Sherry, I'm going to put you. Go ahead. Sounds like we have a little bit of a broken line. I'm going to put her on hold and see if our producer, Sherry, hang on just a minute, all right? We'll try to get back to you because your call's breaking up, but we will go to Vince next on line 2. Hey, Vince. Vince, you there? All right, let's try it again. Vince, are you there? Well, we'll try to get this worked out in just a minute. Guys, we apologize for that. Okay, so obviously we have funding issues that we're facing. And now with this crisis, how long this crisis budget, I mean, are we just looking at the 2020-2021 school year, or this going to drag on for several more years?
I mean, MNPS has been underfunded for so long that I don't really know how to answer that question. You know, teacher pay in MNPS is 17th. It ranks 17th in the state of Tennessee for the average. In a state that ranks 45th in the nation for per pupil funding. And what that means is that kids don't have teachers. And that was the problem before this happened, because the job doesn't, the pay, it stagnates for so long, it doesn't go anywhere. That people don't see a future in it. And so, you know, that's something that the city and the state is going to have to deal with at some point, because, you know, before COVID, we were really hitting a breaking point with this. We had so many chronic openings. We had high school students who weren't able to take the classes they needed to take. They didn't have the teachers they needed to learn the subjects they needed to get into college. It's really, you know, at a certain point, you can keep trying to patch up a roof that's done, but you're going to have to replace the roof eventually. And so I think that's kind of where we are as MNPS, and largely in the state as well. And so, you know, something has to give. We have to make funding education an actual priority. We have to keep up with we have to make teaching a competitive career again.
Like what Andy said, maybe this kind of crisis will shed more light and get people a little more informed about the issue and push their legislators. All right, I'm going to try to get Sherry back on line 1. Sherry, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry about the confusion. Go ahead.
All right. Hey, Amanda, this is Sherry. And I have been teaching for Metro. I just finished 25 years. And I know you guys are talking a lot about the budget. But my main concern is the health of the students and teachers like me. I'm 55 years old. I am diabetic. I'm really concerned about going back to a building, knowing that I will be teaching second grade. how can I keep these kids social distancing with masks on? I mean, I need more teachers in this conversation because we're on the front lines and money cannot buy my health. The budget, all of that is well and fine, but
good point.
What are you going to do? Yeah, what can I do? I got 5 years before retirement. Can they offer me a buyout for 5 years so I can I can reserve my health and be able to enjoy my retirement? Thank you.
All right, that's a good question. Amanda, I'll let you jump in on that.
Sure. Yeah, that is something we have brought up with the district, that it would be a really good idea to offer incentives for early retirement right now. Specifically because first and foremost, the teachers who are closest to retirement are the ones who are most at risk for their health. And so that would help. And I know that we're in a budget crunch. We're able to get some additional funding for MNPS. It's not even close to enough for what we need. But, having teachers who are ready to retire, maybe move out of the system, might ease a little strain on the budget as well, because folks have been working longer, get paid more. And so it seems kind of like a win-win deal. The issue is that we're so close to the bone on this budget that the administration is at this time told me they're not able to figure out how they could do that. That's just not in the budget.
A legitimate concern.
I think that it makes sense to me to advocate for that, because I think that that's a solution that we could have. Beyond that, I think that we absolutely need to come up with ways that protect our teachers and our students that are vulnerable. I know in some places there are other states that are considering things like having only early elementary students return to actual school, while and sort of prioritizing teachers who would be the least impacted, younger teachers who do not have underlying health conditions, and then having other teachers teach online for everybody else. So there are some ideas floating around out there. But Sherry, I agree with you. You can always get another job, but you only get one life. And so that has to be our priority in what we protect.
Moving parts, you said it best. Let's go back to the phones real quick. One more call, if we can get in a quick call before the break, and that is Lou, I believe. Hey, Lou. Lou, you there?
Yes, I am.
Hi, go ahead. What's on your mind?
How are you?
Doing well.
Amanda, I am a substitute teacher for Metro Schools, and I have been substituting over 26 years, part-time, and I'm a little worried about how the children are going to come back safely. And I see there is very little hand washing. The restrooms are usually not great cleaned, and I go to about 10 different schools. And also, the money issue, I may consider quitting and going to work at Target for $15 an hour. So hopefully we can figure this out.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you. Hold off on your comments, guys. We're going to take another break, and we will answer Lou's. Yeah, Target just went up to $15 an hour minimum wage, starting wage. So we'll be right back.